All right, welcome to TechCodePractice once more, and we're gonna do some revision as to what we discussed last time, just to get a refresher. So last time we started off with arrays. We discussed, yeah, what arrays are. Remember, an array is a collection of data that has the same data type. So normally, or how you guys have been working so far. Let me give a vivid example so we can work with something you guys are familiar with. So just clear this out real quick and we'll put a closing bracket. So normally, what if someone said you should say to print out, how to put it? So normally, if you were taking in data, right? Say taking in data from a user and you had to store it, right? So if I say store, take in the names of three users, right? Where for you guys it's quite easy because oh, it's just three people. So you could create three variables, right? You could say variable one. So we start with the data type. You say name one is equal to Darlington, for example, and string two. I mean string of name two, which is the variable name. We'll say Sumi and string of name 3 is equal to not so, right? Constance is raising up a hand. Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, I can't see your screen.
No way. You guys didn't say anything. Can you see it now?
Thanks.
All right. So normally, if I ask you to print, to collect three names of people and print that out on the screen, that is quite easy, right? Probably you guys would do something like this, like okay, variable one, variable two, variable three, and you get the name. Then I'll be like, okay, print the names, right? So you do something like this, the print ln, and you say name one, and then you do that for the other two, and then you this will print out the name Darlington Sumban Nonso, right? So for something like this, it's quite easy. You guys understand this code. We have three variables, and the variable names are what you see here. Name one, name two, name three. That's the variable name. The first part is the data type, which is of a string data type. And then the last part is the actual value that is inside the variable. And I asked you to print it, and you printed it three times. So this is pretty straightforward, quite easy. What if I asked you then to print out 500 names? I mean, to take 500 names and print it out. Can you imagine how tedious that would be? That would that would not even make sense because you have to write variable names 500 times. Can you imagine that? So that's where arrays come into play, or one of the examples where array come into play. Because with array, you can take a collection of data that shared or that have the same data type. So if I had to change this into an array, so what we'll do, if you guys remember last week, we'll have something like this. So you start with the data type, and then you put the open and close square, and then you give it a variable name. So in this case, we can just say names. So we can get rid of all of this. Oh no, we can, let's just comment this out. And then you say equal to, then you say new string. And then when you say new string, then you have to put the number of items you wish to store in the array. So in this case, we know we want to store three names, one, two, three. So we'll have three here. Good. So this was what we went through, right? So now, if we want to, so what we have actually done right now is, if you remember from the other time, is we have actually created now a box of three items. So that's what this is. So we created a box. So the name of this box is called names. So that's what you see here. So this is the name of the variable. And we say this variable of type string will hold only three items. So this box will only hold string. So if you try to put in a number, it would not work. It will give you an error. So this is how you create an array. So an array is actually a box, like a collection of items, and they're actually separated. And if you remember last time, we also discussed that how you navigate through each of the boxes or each of the array items is using the indexes. So if I asked you, what is the length of this array? Of course, you say it's three. It's one, two, three. That's the length actually means how many items can it hold. So you say three. So the length is three, but in terms of getting the items that inside it, it starts counting from one. So the first position is one, is zero. Second position is one. Third position is two. So you have zero, one, two. So if I had to get an item from the first item, I would have to use the index zero. So let's see how this looks like in code. So we're gonna get rid of this stuff. Where's the erase button? Yeah. So, oh no, let's put that back. So let's try to do the same thing, right? So gonna try to see how this is similar to what we see here. Great. So we're gonna say, so now we want to put an item here, which is want to put Darlington on the first in the first box. And how do you do that? You say names, which is the variable name of the array, your square brackets, and then you say zero. See, this is index zero. Index zero is equal to Darlington. So we just duplicate this. Now to put a value in here, that will be index 1. This will be Sumi. And now to put a value in the last box, we have to use index 2 for that. Great. So now we have successfully put Darlington. So here we now have, in this first box, now we have Darlington. In the second box, we have Sumbo. And in the third one, actually, we have none. So the third one will not have none. So that is what is in here right now. So and you see all of this is stored in just the same variable of an array type called names. Now, if we scroll down, we can now print the values that are inside this array because now we have put all this item inside this array. Now, how did we do that? So if you remember, last week we said for loops are one of the most powerful ways you can iterate through an array. So we've been playing around with for loops, so I'm sure you guys are getting familiar with it. So we'll do that by writing a for. So if you remember the syntax, int, we start with zero because remember we said we want to print it from zero to the end. So we want to like go from zero, one, two to print the contents. So we're gonna initialize that to zero. Sorry, I is equal to zero. Then the next thing is we want to loop, we want to keep we want to keep looping through the items until we reach the end. And how are we going to know the end? We have to know what is the length of the array. What is the length? So we know the length is 3 because only 3 items can get it. So how can you get what the length is? We do that by using the name of the array dot length. So let's see that. So we say if I is less than the name of the array, which is names dot length. So when you run this, it will give you 3. So names dot length will give you 3. So let's give that a try. So I'm going to comment this out now. Let's just see if that works. So print ln, so say names dot length. Now check this out. So if we run this code now, let's run this. So you see name dot length is 3. You can see that down here. So that's how you find out how many items are in an array. If I add even more, so I make this now 3, 4, sorry, 4, right? So we know now that there are 5 arrays here, but how do we get it programmatically? How do we get the number? How do we find out what is the length of this array? Of course, we have to change this to 5. If not, it's going to give us an error. Then if you run this, if you run it again, you see it's going to print out 5 because when it comes here, it checks names.length and it prints out 5. So if you want to find out what the length of an array is, you use the name of the array dot length. So that's that. So we do that for our for loop. We say we want you to keep looping. So we're gonna change this. Okay, let's just go. Let's just add some more. All right. So we're gonna say keep looping from 0. Your starting point is 0, and keep looping until I is as long as I is less than the length of this array. The moment is the same or greater than, of course, you have to bounce out. Then what do you do every time you loop through it? We increment by 1. So that's what that is. Now, to print it becomes now easy. We just say system the out the print ln. Now remember, how do you find the value of each of the items in an array? You use the index. So basically, you do the same thing that you did here. So if you take this now and you put it here, or to put it simply, just type names square bracket. So if I put any of these numbers here now, if I say names dot two, it will print out none. So if I say names dot four, it will print out Kindle. But in this situation, we want to print out everything. And remember, this for loop I iterates from 0 till 4, because when it comes to 5, it will see that I is I because names that length will give you 5. So when it gets to 5, 5 is not less than 5, then it will break out. So that means we can now put I here because I will now print from 0. So the first time I will be 0. It will increment again, it will be 1. It will increment again, it will be 2. It will increment to be 3. It will increment to be 4. And then when it gets to 5, it will break out. So doing it this way, we'll be able to print out everything in the array. Now let's run that to see. So I'm gonna clear the screen so you guys can see properly. So when we run this now, you see we have all the names nicely printed out. Darlington, Sumba, Nonso, Tron, Kindle. And that's exactly what we have here. So you see we only used one system.out.print, which is quite convenient instead of writing it like 5 times or 500 times. If it was 500 data we need to collect. Um, yeah, so that's beautiful. This is one of the powers of powerful things arrays can do. I also taught you guys that there are also two different. There's also another way of initializing an array. So you see, this is the first way. You give the array name, and then you stipulate the number of items the array can hold. But you can also do it some other way by directly. So I'm going to duplicate that. So the second way to initialize an array is, instead of saying new string 5, you can just do open and close brackets and put the names directly in it. So this will be Darlington, this will be Sumi, this will be Onsoro, Tron, and this will be Kindle. So this whole line is actually the same as this line and this whole line. So this is a much easier way to do it. And when you do it like this, the array will automatically know that it can only hold 5 items, so you don't need to do this anymore. And then it will also directly initialize it. So this first point will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, just like what you have here. So you can get rid of this, get rid of this, and when we run the query again, we'll see we get the same result. So as you can see, it's the same result down here. Darlington, Sumbo, and so Tron Kingdom. So this was pretty much what we did last week. Um, we also, what else did we learn? Yes, so we also learned that strings are also a collection of characters. So a char, remember a char, the char data type. So you say char alphabet is equal to single quote A. So a string is actually an array, or you can see it as an array, like the way it's being put together is actually an array of characters. So you see DARL. So if you put characters together, you actually get a string. So that also means that innately you can access the characters in an array, in a string, using the index positions. So what do I mean by that? So we're going to comment this out. Let's give that a try. So if I said string, if I wrote string um, hello, so that's a variable name, and the value will be hello world. So if I asked you to give me the first letter in this string, or to print out the first letter in the string, so you also use index position to get it. So how do we do that? So we can do system.out.println, and then we say hello dot character at, remember char at, and then we give the index position. So what index position would this be? This would be index position 0. So remember, an array counts from 0 to the rest. So this will be character position 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So if I wanted to get the first letter of this array, of this string, I would just say hello dot character at, and I'll give the index position 0. And if I printed this out, or if I run this, it will give me H. If I also wanted to know what the length of this string is, I could also say hello, which is the name of the variable, dot length. You see that? So you see length was very similar to what we did here, names.length. But in this case, we used an what do you call it? A bracket at the end. On this one, we didn't use a bracket, but it does the same thing. So if I run this now, it's going to tell us the length of this string. So let's give that a try. So it's going to tell us now that this string is worth 11, holds 11 character. We could also loop through the uh, the the letters in this string and print out each word in every row. And how do you do that? So we use the for loop as well. Since we know that a string is actually an array of characters, so we could just do something similar by saying doing I is equal to 0. Since we know it starts from the an array starts from index position 0, then we say hello. Sorry, if I is less than hello dot length. Remember, so this gives us the length of this string. So as long as it's less than that, we'll say we want I to increment. So if we do it this way, then we just simply say system the out the print ln, then we say hello dot character at, Then we put the I there. So remember what the I will do. Um, so the I will iterate every index position. So it's going to go HELO because it's going to be going from 0, 1, 2, 3. So we're going to be looping that. So let's see when we run it to see what we're going to get. So we get hello world in line like this because a string is actually an array of characters and we can loop through each of them to get out what it is. So you see here also you see the importance of using lengths because now we could just easily say I don't care. See, we just added more characters to this. So when you just add more characters, because you use this hello.length as your to find the length of this, you don't have to do anything again. It still will run and without errors because now you see it just goes hello world, I don't care. So that's the beauty of using the hello.length or using in this case name.length because when you do that, because one could argue, oh, since I know this holds three, I would just put here uh say four. I mean sorry, you could just change this to four. I mean four, right? And say, okay, because I know it's three values, but it's not good practice to do that. You want to leave it at, you want to dynamically get the length by using the name of the array dot length to get the length of the array because that way when the length of the array changes or you update it, you don't have to touch your code anymore, just like you see we did here. So we can even add more characters or reduce the character and like as you can see now, I just reduced it and I don't have to do anything because it knows the length. It will just keep looping until it gets to the length. When it checks this, it's going to know this is five, an array of five characters here, and it's just going to loop through it and then without errors. And yeah, so we also touched on this last time. Does anyone have any questions so far? Raise your hand, please, if you have a question. If something is unclear, you want me to explain something. All right, great. I'm not seeing any hands. So let's look at the assignments you guys did. Because I learned some of you struggled with some, and I looked at some of the constants you submitted and also submitted. I mean, sorry, and Obina submitted. And it was quite interesting to see. So let's see what the assignment is. So the assignment first one was we should add, create an array that has these names. Just give me a minute. I have to take my boy to pee. 1 minute. All right, sorry about that. I had to take my little man to the toilet real quick, but I'm back. So, so you see the question says, add the following. Probably put change this to two. Add the following to an array. So this all we're gonna put in an array. Then write a Java program that takes an input and tests if the name is found in the array. If it is found, it should print yes found. If it is not found, it should say not found. So let's start off with I think OB. Let's see. Let's see. OB did this index search. So if I print, let's run OB's version. So first of all, let's look through OB's code, right? So OB has the class name as index search. He's using a scanner. The first thing he does is he tells the user to enter a word. Um, then when the user enters a word, okay, no. So this is a different assignment. This is not the. This is the second assignment actually. So let's go to Constance. I think Constance tried to solve this. Yes. So we see Constance created an array here called TCS. So first feedback for you, Constance. When you're creating variable names, use descriptive names. Use a name that describes what you are holding. So I'll probably change this to, let's see, can we rename? Is there a renaming thing going on here? Okay, and refactor. Let me see.
I think it's a refactor.
Yeah, this is yeah rename. So the reason I'm using rename is if I rename it here, it's gonna rename it in every other places it appears. So that saves me time. So I'll just call this names. So you see, as I'm renaming it, it says rename it everywhere that place. So that's why I use that feature of IntelliJ called rename. So it fixes everything. So I'm going to use the variable called names because it describes what we are holding here. So this is quite more of a descriptive name. You want to do that when you're using. You can still hear me, right? Can you guys hear me? Raise your hand if you can hear me. All right, great.
Can you hear me? Yeah, we can hear you.
So we just refactored her code. So it's called names. Then she has a string called input. So obviously she's going to use this to get the input from the user. Then she also has a boolean called name check, and she initialized that to true. So okay, so let's leave that there. Then she uses the scanner, and the first thing she prints is what is your name. So the scanner, of course, is going to be used to get the input from the user, which is why she initialized this here. And then she has a for loop, and she uses a different type of for loop. This is very interesting. This is actually called the for each loop. But I'm gonna come into that. So basically, what this will do is this will loop through the array, and it's going to check if um, it's going to check if each is going to go through each of them. So that's why that's going to be stored for each of them is going to be stored in this name, and it's going to use this equals. Um, so this is a method in the string object that can be used to check if two values are the same. So she's going to say, okay, she's saying, okay, for every item you pick, so the first one she's going to pick constants. So these names will be equal to constants. And she's using this method to check if constants is equal to what the user put in. And if it's the same, which will this whole thing will print out a true or false. If it's the same, she now initializes name check to true and breaks this loop. Remember we talked about break, so it will bounce out of this for loop and jump out. And then here she subsequently has a name check that says if the name check is true, just print found in array, and if not found, it says not found. All right, it looks pretty interesting. We're gonna refactor this, but first let's see what it does. So we know Constance is in this, or we know Dio is in this array, but I'm gonna type elephant, and look, it's telling me elephant is found in the array, and we know elephant is not found in this array. So what is going on? It kind of seems like she checked all the boxes, but why is it still failing? Constance, do you have any idea why?
Um, I'm not sure. Maybe because I put the when I when the Boolean name check is
Okay,
true in the beginning. I
you can
should
tell
have
me what
just
to do.
not put it as true. True. Like the first, yeah.
You can tell me what to do.
Like
Okay.
maybe just like
But you
remove
see,
it.
when we don't put a
Not
value, we get
yeah,
an
not put
error
a
here
value.
because
I don't know. Yeah.
now it's saying you did not
An
initialize
error
it.
here because
Because before you can use a
now
variable,
it's
you have
saying
to
you did
initialize
not
it.
initialize it. Because
So
before you can
here
use a
it's just
variable,
saying
you have to initialize
it
it.
could be it goes through this loop and it never comes in here because here you actually do initialize it, but it can go through this loop and never come here in case it doesn't find anything. So here it's saying, bro, I cannot use this because this is just null and you have to put something in it. So does any other do you have a suggestion of how we can fix it? Constance, if not, no problem. We can ask others. Do you have any idea how we can fix this? So should let me put it back. Okay.
How we can fix this? So
Does anybody
let
have any
let me keep
idea
that. Yeah,
why
I'm not
this
sure.
is happening? Why are we still getting true for elephant? Okay. If you have, you can raise up your hand. Then, all right. So this is just the problem. Oh, if I go ahead, let's hear you. You're on mute in case you're talking.
Oh, sorry. The equals ignore case
It is from
function that
Java.
takes
It's
the
a
input.
beautiful thing from
Is it
Java.
a
I'm
function
going to
she created
explain
or
this
a
string
function
to
from
you guys
Java?
when we start talking about object-oriented programming. Because
So she's
no, so yeah,
so she's
she's
checking if
doing two
the
things here.
case is
So this method is doing two
the
things. The
same, right?
first thing it's doing is checking if names is equal to what the person put. So it's going to look through each of this, and it's going to check if the name is equal to the input that comes from the user. And it's also doing another thing called ignore case. That means it's it's saying it doesn't matter if the user uses capital or small letter, it doesn't matter, just ignore it. Just check if it's equal, whether it's the same case or not. So it's a class that it's a method that's doing two things. It's checking if it's equal, and it's not, it's saying it doesn't matter. Check if it's equal no matter if it's the cases are different, whether it's capital or small. So that's what and if it is the same, it will be true, and if it's not the same, it will be false. Constance, you have your hands up. Okay, sorry, go ahead. If I
Okay. What I, like loop is so the if condition is outside the for loop, so and the name check is always true. So when it checks for name check is even
so
if
what
it
would be your
doesn't hit
solution?
the name check, it should be true. It's always true.
How can we fix it?
I
We're
think you should
here.
just put an else statement there. Name check if was false.
Okay,
No else. No. On the if inside the for loop.
like this. Okay. Constance, you had something to say?
Yes. Let's check.
I was thinking the in the if statement, the second one in the bracket, we put name check is true.
But
If
that's
name check
already what it's
is
doing here.
true,
So this, if
then
you
do
put
this.
a
How do you?
data type of boolean and you say if boolean, it's the same as saying if this is equal to true. So this is actually the same as, because it's true here. So if you just take this out, it's the same as saying if name check is true. And if you want to say, if you want to check if name check is not true, if you wanted to go into this block when name check is not
Okay.
true, of course you can write it like this: if name check is not equal to true. But also you can do it like this and say if name check negation. So remember we did negation last time. So that means go into this block if name check is equal to false. So you can either write it like this or you write it like this. Okay, so let's see what's going on here. So this solution that if I gave would work. This would work. We're going to test it out in a minute, and then we're going to see how to even make it better because and really understand what the problem is. You understand? We're going to understand what the problem is. But I want to run if I solution first to see if it's going to work. So let's do that. We're going to run it, and I'll say elephant, and it says elephant is not found. That's what we wanted, right? And then I'm going to say OB. I'm going to run it again. I'm going to say OB, but this time I'm going to use all small letters. So if you look, OB also has a capital in it. If we run it now, if I push enter, it will say OB is found. And that's because constants use if is equal and also ignore cases. But why is it working? Let's understand what happened. So for starters, this solution is good, but the best solution is not even to do this. Let's get rid of this else. So okay, hold up. Let's break it down. Then we'll see what the best solution is. So let's see what's going on. So Constance, you started your program, and your program is already setting name check to true. So that means if I even comment this whole block out, right? If I even comment this whole block, this whole array, guess what's gonna happen? I run this now. If I say hello, it's gonna say it's found. It's gonna just keep saying found for anything I do. If I say rubbish, it's going to say rubbish is found. And the reason is because you already initialized it to true. And in your check here, you said if name check is true. This is the same as this. So you actually said if name check is true, print found in array. So let's put our breakpoint and debug now, and you see exactly what's going on. So you see here, so at this point now, you see names is initialized. Look at it here. So we have the variable names. They're all initialized. And if we step one down, you see name check is true. Look, you did that here. Name check is true. Then of course we go to the scanner. We do our scanner thing. Scanner next line. Where is that? Let's put our next line. Let me. Where is that again? That's the console. I'll say rubbish. Then I'll go to the, let me see, debug. Oh, sorry. So I press enter, then I get back to my debug. So you see now we are at name check. So let me go to the debug window. Where is the debug window again? Sorry, where is it? Service build terminal. No, yeah, here. So try that variable. So you see here, remember here, name check is already true. Look, name check is true. And I typed in my rubbish, that's this here, and now we are on line 28. If name check is true, that's what this is saying. This means if name check is true. And is name check true? Yes, name check is true. So we're gonna go in, and you see, you just went in because name check is true. So of course it's gonna say input found in array. So if I go to the next one, you see, it's printing out. If you go to the other tab, to my console, see, rubbish found in array. So does it do you have an idea now what the problem is or what we should have done? Who someone raised their hand up? Constance? Let me exactly.
So if I just put the Boolean name check is
Exactly.
false, then
So if we had done
the
it
for
this
loop would
way,
work better,
then when we
basically. The if loop.
remove this, now we don't need this anymore because what if I did here for you is okay, since you did not do that here, if I is now doing it in here and say, okay, since this is going to look through everything, every time it checks, if it doesn't find it, now it will initialize it to false. So now, why this worked was, even though you made it true here, when it gets here, if I set it to false. So that's why this worked. But now, since you've put this false, this is no longer needed because it will always be false until this becomes true, until it goes in here, until it finds something, it will be true. And that also means that since it will always be false, it will never go into this is found only when it's initializes name check to true. So this would solve the problem. So let's run this. Then you see now I type gibberish and it will say not found in array, because it starts with false anyway, and it's only going to be true if it finds something. You get it? Is it clear? Good. Now we can even make the code even nicer. So it's good I like
Yep,
your
that makes
testing your
sense.
if else, but we can even make it nicer. And how are we gonna do that? We can do that simply by saying we can make the code smaller. Of course this works. So how can we make this code smaller or refactor it? Let's see. We can we can also simply print uh let's see, we can do something like this. Let me see if that makes some sense. Um let's see. I'm trying to see of a way we can Okay, let's do the first part. So we can just print this directly here and say do something like this. So we'll negate this now. We'll say, okay, if it's not found, print this out. So here we'll directly print the message, and then we only print this message if it's not found. So I'm going to change a variable name. So this does not describe what this is very much because this name check is actually what we're doing. But what is this? What is this variable? So I would say use something like has. I'll say I'll just let me even show you how. Just it could even be a sentence for your variable name because it will help you know what it's doing. So I can just do something like did you find the name? So you see, when you look at this variable name, did you find the name? False. That oh, did you find it? No. That's what this means. So that means when you get here, you say as long as did you find the name was no or false, print this. So you see the variable name now is more descriptive. You understand? So that's the beauty of using variable names that are quite descriptive. You use it to it kind of makes more sense to you when you're looking through your code. So this also simplifies it because now we don't have to um make the if very long again. We just print this out. Of course, you can do it the way you did it. I'm just trying to see how we can refactor it. Uh, Another way we can also refactor it. Let me see. Is there another way we can even make this code smaller? Let's see. I think we'll leave it like this for now. This is okay. So it doesn't matter how you did it. The way you did it is good. But every time, we refactor to see if there's a way you can simplify the code. So we'll leave this like this for now. So that's how to solve this problem. So first, you put them all in an array, like you did it. You guys know how the scanner works. Did you find the name? Initialize it to false. You loop through it. Now, of course, you can also loop using the other types of loop we did, but fine. That is this is called a for each loop, and the other one is a normal loop that you guys know. We're gonna look into this as we go on. But let's go to the other exercise. Let me see. Where is my file? So the other. Okay, does anyone have a question actually on this about this? No. So the second question is write a program that asks a user to enter a word or a phrase. So for example, I can enter Darlington. Then ask the user which index position would they like to see. So remember, I told you guys that a string is a collection of characters, and that means each of the string has different or its own index position. So this could be index position, this will be index position 0, 1, 2, 3, and so forth. So if the user says, I want index position 2, so that would be 0, 1, 2, that means the system should print R. So that's what this is doing. So let's see how OB solved this. So we're going to run OB's code. So we see OB use the scanner to get the user input. Initialize the scanner, ask the user to enter a phrase and got the user input using the scanner. And then he asked the user to he asked the user what index position do they want. And of course, index position is a number, right? So you see that's why OB is using next int instead of next line. So which is beautiful because that way you can store it directly in an integer data type. And then I see here OB now loops through the oh no, he's doing an if check. Oh, that's interesting. So you say if index is greater than 0 and index is less than the length, you get the input at the index position. Okay, this is very, very good. Very good. And if it's not, you print this. Okay, great. This is nice. So let's see what it's if it's gonna run. So we're gonna see what it's doing. So the first thing I'm gonna type is hello, and I want it to give me this O, right? So it will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I want it to print what's in the fourth index position. So if I press enter, OB is now asking me what index position do I want to find. I'll say I want the index position 4. If I push enter, it tells me it is O, which is in the hello here. So that works pretty well. So let's see. Let's take a very close look at what OB is doing here. So OB is saying did a very good check here. So he says he's checking to make sure that. So let's see. Let's run it again to see why this check OB put here is really nice. So if I run this again and I say hello, and I know hello has just 5 letters, I mean 5 characters, but in terms of index position, the last index position is 4. If I now become absurd, I'm like, oh, give me index position 6. So we see the index doesn't get up to 6. It's just 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's where this check comes into play, because now if I push enter, it's going to say the index cannot be found, because what Obi is doing is he's saying the person must put a number that is equal to 0 or greater than 0, and the index, which is what the person put in, you see that's where he got here with the scanner. He's saying this index must be less than the length the the input. Remember this, the input the person puts, and the input is of type string. And remember, if you want to get the length of a string, you use the dot length uh, method. So he said the index you are putting in as a user, it must be less than that. Why didn't he make it less than or equal to? Because because this input the length is actually going to print out. So let me show you. So let's do this. Let's see what that input dot length does. So we're going to say system dot out dot print ln. We'll say input dot length. So let me also just say do something like this. So we'll know, we just have to print out what that length actually contains. So this is no, let's just make it simple. So we know this is the length. So if I run this again now, so I'm going to say hello. I'm going to say I want index position 7. So you see it says this is not found, but my index position, my the length of this array is 5. So as you can see here, this input length is 5, which is true because hello is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But how is it, since it's 5, it's not giving me an error? So let's how is it that when it's 5, how is it that this is 5 and not 4? Because we know index positions are like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Why is OB not putting using something that has 4 here? Because this is giving us 5. Why? Why is this block working? Does anybody know why? Or maybe I'm not asking the question correctly. Uh, if I go ahead, yes. But also, I think I didn't ask
It's
my
using the
question
dot length
properly.
property,
Actually,
so it
what I
always
wanted
gets
to
the length of the
iterate
input.
is this would always stop at 4 and not 5, because he used less than. So 5, so if you put in here, for example, you put, let's do it, give that a try. If I say hello, and I now say give me the 5th index position, even though this input is 5, because if you run input.length, it will give you 5, and I'm saying give me the 5th position. There is no 5th index position because this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. His code will still work. Let me see. It still works fine. It doesn't give us an error, and that's because he actually said less than. So because when he gets here, this index will be 5, and is 5 less than 5? What would this return? Is 5 less than 5? Because remember, input.length will give us 5. Is it true or false? 5 is 5 less than 5? It's false. Exactly. It's false. So that's why this works when you're using index
False.
position. But it would have failed if he did
5% less than 5.
index less than or equal to. This would definitely fail because, um, yeah, when I say 5, that means it will now actually go and look for index 5. It's going to come in here and start looking for index 5, and then this will crash. So this makes sense that he made it just less than and not less than and equal than or equal to. So this works. Beautiful stuff using the length. That's good. And this check is also good. Very nice. Let's see how Constant solved this problem. So first let's run it and see what it's doing. So I'm going to enter the same phrase, hello. I'm going to enter the index position of 4, and of course it prints out oh. Let me also try it again. Yeah, Chino, so you have a question? Okay. So run it again. I'll say hello, and this time I want the index position of 5,
Oh no, that was a
and it
mistake.
crashed. And that's also because I think probably because Constance did not uh, specify do a check there, so that's okay. So let's look at how she did it. It's pretty straightforward. It's the same thing. She used the scanner that she initialized, got the word, got the index, and she just printed it at the index position. So pretty nice, pretty nice. Yes. Okay, I like it. So are there any questions with regards to this? No. So I would also like to introduce you guys as well to the second, to a different type of array, or actually, is actually an array, but in this case, it's called a multi-dimensional array. And the syntax is like this. Now, what does a multi-dimension look like? So I think I have a picture here I was looking at already that I intended to use for the. Let me put that in its own slide so it to make a lot of sense to you guys. So this. So remember, what we've been working on uh, up until now is just one of these lines. So if I said put this row in an array, that's pretty easy. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But I might want a multi-dimensional array where I have both rows and columns. See this? So these are columns and these are rows. And to build something like this, we use what we call a multi-dimensional array. So remember, each of this is actually synonymous to an array, but you want to build something that has both rows and columns, and at once, instead of saving this one in its own array, this one is its own array, this one is its own array. No, no, you can actually do that in the same array, but using a multi-dimensional array. And how does that look like? So we see in the, oh, sorry. So you see in the slide here before this, you do that by, it's quite similar, but this time instead of using one square bracket, we actually use um, two square brackets and then the array name. Then of course, you have to specify the length of it. So this is the length in rows and this is the length in columns, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So this is rows and this is column. Good. So that's when I mean rows and column, I mean this is the first one is the rows. That is x 1 2 3 4 5. That's the rows, and the second one is the. Am I correct? No, no, no. I'm not correct. I think the first one is the rows and the second one is the column. Let's take a look at it. Uh, Multi-dimensional arrays are not something you probably would use often, but you should know how to play with it. But let's assume I am confused about it, and we'll see which is rows and which are columns. But in terms of initializing it. Let's see how that works. So take, for example, I want to store numbers in a multidimensional way, right? So let's do that. So remember, the first thing you want to do is you want to initialize it. Uh, we want to initialize it. So data type and double bracket. So we're gonna say int. Gonna, gonna put a space there. So and then we're gonna put in a name. So we call this scores. Maybe we want to score store scores or something. And then we say new int, and the first one is gonna hold 5, and the second one is gonna hold 3. So I would say the first one is I think it's the rows. Yeah, I think this is row and column. So each row and each column. Yes, that's what it is. This is the first one is the rows, and the second one is the columns. But let's see how that looks. So how do you initialize this? So now you say scores for the first. Remember the first integer will be 0, and then the second one is 0 as well. So that means we are actually on this block. So this is 0 row, 0 column. So this will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Remember. So now we are on 0 row and 0 column. So that's this. And you say it's equal to, let me make my life easier. So I'll say 2, 3. So this would be, uh, we'll say 10. Now on the same 0, see, on the same 0 row, but this time we want to start in one column. So this would be 11, and then the third one would be 12. Now we'll do the same thing. Hold up. This is a row, so it should be, so row is 2 actually. So I think I did too much there. So this is because we have 2 rows and 3 columns. So 2 rows. This is row 1, row 2, and let me see. So sorry, this will be, let me just be clear on that. So we want 2 rows. Yes, 2 rows and 3 columns. Good. That is correct. So this is 2 rows and 3 columns. So instead of 3, this will be 2. Sorry. So we have on row 1. So we are still on this row. So what we did is row 1 is 10. So this is the first row. Remember, this is a row. So row 1 is 10. So 10 will be here. 11 will be here. And 12 will be here. So this is the first row. Now you see it has 3 columns. So it's doing 3 times 0, 1, 2, 3. So we do this now for the second row, because we say it's going to have 2 rows. So now the second row will now be 1, 1, 1, because now we are on the second row here. So we say second one is going to be, yeah, we could just make this 20, 21, 22. So we have successfully designed a multidimensional array, 2 rows. So you see 2 rows, row 1 and row 2, which is the index position 0, 1. That's why you see 0, 1. So zeros and 1. And the column is 3, so it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, which is 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 2. Sorry, yeah, 0, 1, 2, because we said it's going to be a length of 3. And we did that twice, so this is row 1, because if you look at it, these are all zeros. And row 2, and you see these are all ones in terms of index position. Now the question is, how do you print it, right? Can you guys still hear me? Great. So let's print this out then. Now this is also where the for loop shines better than that for
Yeah, we
each
can
loop
hear
that
you.
the constant.
Yeah, we
Yes.
can hear
So
you.
for each,
Can hear
the
you.
for loop works makes your life more easier because then here we can play with the index position, so we can track it down. So first of all, let's just print out one of them. Say, take for example, I want to print out this one. So it's quite easy. So say system.out.println. So all we have to do is say scores. We want to on the first row, which is index position, we want to print the third item. So that's 2 here, index position 2. So if we run this now, it will print out 12. See that? Then if we wanted to print out this one, for example, that's the second. This is the second row, the third box. So just similar to this. Okay, you know what? Let's make our life easier. So we can use this chart as reference, right? So let's say we want to print out just this block. So this is it. So you see, this is two rows. This is two rows, sorry. Row one, row two, and three columns. So let's so so just put this in your mind. Let me see if I can screenshot it. Screenshot, open. All right, so I just screenshotted this guy, put it here. So I'm gonna clean this out. Now we go back to our code and our screenshots right next to each other. Oh, sorry. So now we're gonna change the value. So this 00, this is row 0. Remember the index position counts from 0 and column 0. So we make this that x we're gonna change to 0 because we cannot use x, remember, because it has to be of integer data type. Then we have 0, 1, 2. So we're gonna change this to 1, 2. 1 and 2. So that way we can use the reference board. Oh, it's quite silly because it's all the same as well. I do take a good look because 1, 2, 1, 2. It's we hard to tell the difference, but we just make this 3, 4. Let's make it 3, 3, 4, 5. So I just substituted this 1, 1, 2 to 3, 4, 5. So now let's print. So if we printed 0, 2 now, 0.2, so we get 2. Uh, uh, the first row, second column would actually give us 2, of course. And if I did 1, 2, that's the second row, because the second row is 1. So this is the second row. And I want to print out the index position of 2. Index position of 2, that's 0, 1, 2. That will be, in this case, 5. So if I did this, it's 5. So this is beautiful, but imagine I use that to build this whole board. You understand? And you doing this like this will kill me because I have to write system that auto print the whole for the whole board. That's like overkill. That's where your for loop comes into play. So just try to pay attention really quick. And remember last time we did nested for loop. So the nested for loop is going to be amazing here. So let's go. For, remember, int of I is equal to 0. We know this. And if I is less than, what would it be less than? So if I is less than scores, so can we do that length here? Okay. But what is now the actual length here? We're gonna take a look at that. Then increments I, right? So first of all, before we get into this loop, let me comment this out. Let us see what the length will print out here if we do that. So let's say system dot out dot print. I would say scores dot length. What would this print out? Is giving us 2, which is the row. It's beautiful. So fine. We know we want to go from first row, second row. So we're going to be going row by row. And just by using scores.length, we get the length of the row. So it's going to give us this, um, it's going to give us that of the length of the first one, which is beautiful because that's what we need because we want to go row by row. So this is good. So I'm going to check this. But then, for us to be able to get the value by value, we also need to look through the inner uh, um, array that is in there, which is now we're in the row. We also need to go to the column to get the value because that's how they are assigned. You see that? It's you get the row, you get the column, then you assign a value. Because if we did just this, if we said system, oh sorry, the print. So I'm not going to use print line here. I'm just going to use print. So if I did this scores and I put a block here and I said I, this would not work because the I is only going to access just the row. But we need the row and the column. Remember, that was how we were printing out the value. So this wouldn't work per se. So we need a way to find. So this actually at this point would be scores 0. But remember, to be able to get the 0, we need to have this index and this index. So how are we going to do that? But first of all, I'm curious as to what this will print. Let's see what this is going to print. So let me comment this out and see what's going on. You see this? It's printing out gibberish because it's saying that there's still an object that it still needs to access. And this is more of machine code and saying, bro, this is how I can represent that there is an object that is still in front that I can access. So this would not work for you. So what you have to do is remember how we were printing stuff out. We said if we wanted to print a multi-dimensional array, so I'm going to bring this out, we have to do it this way. So if we wanted to print 3, remember we said you have to do it like this. We have to say put the index and the, sorry, not where I wanted to print it, put it. We had to do it something like this. We have to put the index of the first of the row and then that of the column to get the value out. That was what we did before. So we have to find a way to do that in using the for loop. So that's where our nested for loop comes in. So we'll create another for loop. So we say int I. No, in this case we cannot reuse I because we've used the up here. So we'll go with j. J is equal to 0. So now we're going to use this now for the columns. So I is equal to 0. So is if I is less than scores. So scores, let's see, scores I dot length. And why am I doing scores I dot length? So it's going to check for every row. Remember, this is going to go, the first one is going to go row by row. So it's going to check for every row, what is the length of data that is inside every row. So that's what this will do. Then we go to, then we say, sorry, I put I here. It's not supposed to be I. It's supposed to be J rather. And then we say J increment. So one of them, the outer one is going to be responsible for for this numbers that is here, which is the row. The inner one is going to be responsible for the columns. So now if we wanted to print it out, we're going to go to the inner for loop, which is what we see here, very similar to what we're doing here. So it's going to be system.out.println scores, sorry, scores. Now you see the first column, the first bracket, I mean, remember, has to be the row. And we're using this outer loop for the row. So it's going to be I here. So in this case, the first time is going to be I. And then the second one is going to be the J. So that means for every, so if we first of all, it's going to come into the zero, and it's going to loop in the zero. It's going to loop based on the length of the column. So the length of the column is 3. It's going to keep looping until it prints out everything here. Then it's going to come out of this loop and then go and to the next one. The next one will now be what? 1. I will now be 1, which is here. So it's now be 1, 1, 1. But the inner loop is going to start from 0, 1, 2 because the length is always going to return 3. So let's see if this would now work. So let's put some space between them. So what are we doing? So let's not use ln. Let's put a space. Let me say plus space so that we can see it clearly. And then when we are done with every row, when we're done with every row, I want to print uh, an empty line so that we can have it can make it go to the next line. So this is just going to make it go to the next line. If not, it's going to print everything on the same line because I'm not using print ln here. So let's see how this is going to look like. We'll run this and you see 0, 1, 2. So 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. And because of I put my print ln, that takes it to the next line and it now does 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5. So technically, that means we could actually create a full timetable using multi-dimensional array. Because if you look at this, this is actually a times table. This is um, 2 times 1. Oh, how do I put it? Is this a timetable? Let me see. 2 times 1 is 2. Yeah, so 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 5 is 10. And it goes on and on. So you can actually duplicate a, a, a times table using multi-dimensional array and actually print it out to look exactly the way we see it here. So this is another array type. It's called multi-dimensional array. Now, of course, you can be like, okay, this is nice, but can we still use that same shorthand we used at the other one? The answer is absolutely true. So we can comment all of this out and simplify it or simplify the initialization by doing this something similar to what we did before. So instead of initializing it like this, we'll open a curly bracket. Now on the first, we'll open another curly bracket and we initialize to 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. I'll put a comma, create another curly bracket, and now make it 3, 4, 5. 3, 4, 5. So if we do it like this is synonymous to all of this long line you see here, which of course I would advise you to write it like this because it's quicker, it's easier. But Java would know that you mean two rows and 3 columns because it's just gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna look at how many objects are in here. It's 2, so it's synonymous to this 2 here. And how many columns, how many items are inside each? 0, 1, 2. So that's 3. It's synonymous 3. So it's gonna innately do all of this for you. So you see now when we run the code, it's gonna print out the same thing. So of course, this is better for you to use, but it's very good to know that this is what Java is doing under the water. So if you do it like this, if you write it like this, what Java would do is it will rewrite it to this, but you just don't know it. It's doing that in the engine to rewrite it to this, thereby saving you time. Great. Do we have any questions so far? Raise up your hands, please, if you have a question. All right. So I think it's pretty clear, right? So I want to give you guys one hands-on to perform, and then I'll give you guys an assignment for the day. So this assignment we did here, I want you guys to redo it. Let me see. Where is it again? So can you guys redo this assignment where the user enters, um, let me see, is that the best way? No, 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 let's not do that. I like the way you guys solved this. That's actually the best way to solve it. Just a minute, I'm trying to turn on my tablet because I have, I have an exercise I wrote down that I want you guys to do. Let me see, is everything clear? My stuff is starting up, so just give it a minute. Yeah, so this is the assignment. You write the program, it asks the user to enter a word or phrase, and the output to it will be, oh, this the word has X amount of characters.
Clear, sir.
And I will give you guys
Yeah.
10 minutes for that. All right, I think that's about time. Let's see. So Obina's done. So Chino, so how far did you get? You're mute in case you're talking. Okay, I think Nonso is not here. Constance, how far did you get? Okay, sorry. I think I muted my audio. Um, so let's give it a shot. Chinonso, how far did you get? If you can hear me. Did you finish? All right, Constance, did you finish? Okay. So Obi finished and Ifeanyi finished.
I think I was able
And
to finish that.
Chinonso, is your code working?
Yeah.
Uh, all right, share your screen. Let's see.
Yeah.
So maybe others can help you.
I'm trying it out. I'm testing it out. Okay. Um share my screen.
Okay. Okay. Can you format your code using that style which I showed you? How to format your code?
Yeah, it's working.
You can use you can also use Command A for that. That's fine.
Yeah.
All right. Good. So we see it's working. So can you explain your code line? Can you explain your code line by line as you can? Maybe you can maybe you can tell us which
Yeah.
line you're talking about. Then that way
So
we can
first
follow
I
you.
use
So
the
we have
scanner
line
method
7, line 9.
to start it up. Then I use the print out system dot out dot print line so that the user. Uh, okay, the line 7 was me using the
No.
scatter method to
What does
start
that
off the
line do
code.
exactly?
Then on line 9, I use the system dot
Look at it
out
again.
dot print
Line
line
9, look
so
at it
that the
again.
user can type
What is it
in
doing?
the word they would want to find the length of.
No, it's just printing out something. So it's just telling the
Just
user
for the user
something.
to type any word.
Now where the user
Which
types
of
the
it
word is in line 10. So print ln is just used to display something on the screen, a text.
is for the user
Yeah.
to type a
All
word.
right, go ahead.
Oh,
Exactly.
oh yeah, 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 on the screen, yeah, on the screen. Then on the line 10, and that's where the user could type the word. And I closed it up. Then
So what exactly
the
did you do in
line
line 12?
12 is the line where the user can now know the length of their
So what is that?
individual
What is that num character?
words,
What did you call that?
of the characters of the words.
It's a variable. So you created a variable
I did int,
of
then
type int,
number of characters.
of
That's the
type
number
integer.
of
Then what
individual
did you store in the
characters of the
variable?
words.
How did you do
The
that?
length of
Show
the
us
word.
where you did that.
Oh yes, I put
Can
a
you
variable.
exactly? So you use the equal to sign and word dot length took that length of that word the user
I stored
um
the
it got the length
word
of the
dot
word
length
and saved it inside the variable called num character, right?
in the line
All right,
12.
go ahead.
Word dot length. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
And in the last line, which
Great
is
job.
line
So I bet
13,
you guys had something similar, right?
I now made it clear so that the user
Exactly.
can
Thank you, Chinoso, for
clearly
that
see how
explanation.
many
Quite nice.
characters are in the word
Yes, so we'll
they
go back
typed
to our
initially.
screen. I'm going to share my screen again. And we are
Yes, yes.
almost at the end of our Saturday session because the next one is the lab assignment for the week. So you guys are going to use multi-dimensional array to print out a times table to 10, and the output should look something similar to what you have here. The only difference is the x here should be 0. You're going to replace the x with a 0 because an integer cannot hold a string or a character data type. So you make this 0, but at the end of the day, you should have something like this. So hopefully this will be challenging for you guys. Please don't look for the answers on the internet. Remember, the goal here is to practice, to try it out, to say, to fail. Um, if you look for it on the internet, you're gonna get the answer so easily. But try not to do that. Try to break it down yourself. Let it toggle your head, and some of you hopefully will get it. And if you get it, trust me, you probably will never forget it. And even if you don't get it, you would have learned a couple of things because you would have made mistakes and all of that. So try it out. I'll be giving you guys only this assignment. I think it's going to be quite challenging enough, but if you get it, you would also solve it very fast. Just think about it step by step. Um, yeah, and use what we've learned in the during the session. So I'm going to make this video quickly available so you can watch it again. And yeah, that is it. Do you have any questions? Okay, Constance. Okay.
I had a question about the arrays.
Of
Because
course,
we've been
of
putting,
course.
so
So
basically we've been creating
let's do that
obviously
real
an
quick.
array and then put
That's
the
also a very interesting use
put
case which you might get. So
something
take for
inside the array.
example
But is
you're
it
solving
possible
a
for like a
registration,
user, like
doing a
you ask a user
registration,
for
right?
something and then it saves it
And the
in the array,
registration,
in
so
an
say
array? Like, can you do that
registration,
as well?
right? And you are sure that that registration should take only five people, the first five people. Now it makes sense for you to. I'm just using five because I don't want to do it too long, but it could be 100, it could be 200, but you already know the amount of people you are trying to register. And what are you getting? You want to get the person's, the people's names, right? So we can use an array perfectly for that. So I'll just make it simple. So say string of array type, names, and we'll create a new instance of of string names. So we say five because we know it's five. It could be 200, it could be 1,000, but we have a fixed amount of people we want to register, right? Awesome. Then here we use our scanner, the whole scanner thing, which you guys are quite familiar with. So I'm gonna copy you guys code because I don't want to retype. So let's see, the scanner is somewhere here. So I'm gonna copy this one. So in this case, we're gonna say enter your full name, right? Enter your, okay, I'll say, yeah, enter your full name. Let's put it like that. Enter your full name. All right. Oh, sorry. Then instead of all right. Sorry, we're gonna get this. So what we're gonna do now is since we know it's gonna be 5 characters, we're just gonna put this in a loop. So we're gonna do something like this and say for integer I, which is equal to 0 since that's the first index. If I is less than names dot length, I want you to increment I. We all know this part, right? Increment it. All right. Now we start getting the names of the 5 people. So that means it's going to loop 5 times and give us and ask this the user the question 5 times. But let's even be very interesting about it. So we say enter the name of the of person here. We're gonna do something interesting so that way we can track which where we are. So say person I. So, but since I starts from 0, we don't want to have person 0 enter the first name of person 0. No, we don't want to do that. So we're gonna just take this I and add 1 to it. So when it's 0, it's gonna be 1. So enter the first name of person 1, then it to go again. Enter the first name of person 2, it to go again. Enter the first name of person 3. Now here we'll now start putting it in. So we store this instead of saying scanner, instead of storing it inside a variable, we store it inside our array. But this time we're gonna remember how we store stuff in our array. We use um, we use the index position. So it's gonna be 0 and then 1. So the first person 0 is gonna be stored, second, third, and when all of that is done, we will now say when we have completely taken the 5 names of the people, we can now also do it. This time I'm going to use a for each string. Uh, Let me just say registered names. I'll say names here. So this is we of course we can use a for loop. We can use the same for loop here, right? But I just want to use this one so you guys will start getting used to it. Then I'll say system the print ln. Then this will print out all the names. Let me let me just sorry, let me just duplicate it so it makes sense. Say these are the registered names. And okay, let's not use ln. Let's use a comma. Sorry, say plus, comma, or just comma, space. All right. So let's run this and see what it's gonna do. We'll run this now. See, it says enter the name of the first person. I'll say Susan. See, it loops again. Enter the name of the second person. I'll say Henry. Loops. Third person, kindness. Fourth person, happiness. Fifth person, la. If I push enter, so since I said it's going to take 5 people, that means the length now is at this point is completing, it has completed 5. That means this check would have completed, and now it's going to bounce out of there and come to this for loop, and here it's going to print out this. So if I push enter now, then it says these are the names of, okay, okay, yeah, I see what happened here. But it's printing these are the names, Susan, these are the registered names, Henry. So that's not actually what I want. So I'm gonna put this out here, outside here. That was my mistake. So that we have this only one time, and then this will loop for multiple times. So let's do that again. Run, Henry, kindness, hope, ebere, will be. So you see, it says these are the registered names: Henry, kindness, hope, ebere, obi. So this is a beautiful way you can use an array to store data. So you see here we created the array. We wanted to collect multiple inputs. So we created a for loop that was tracking, that checked how many arrays can we take, and then it kept looping to get the input. It kept looping, getting the input, looping, getting the input until it was filled, and then we used this to print it out. So very, very possible. Does that answer your question, Constance? Very possible. It's the same thing. It just depends on what you want to collect. So take for example, for every user, you want to get their name, age, blah 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 in different arrays. You can do
Yeah,
that.
thank you. Can you also do that with
It
like a
just depends on the use case
multi-dimensional
on
array
what
as
you're trying to
well?
solve. But you can do that with a multi-dimensional array. And as you can see, if you create your scanner, you put it in a for loop, or you put it in a loop, it just keeps asking a question depending on where you are in your array. So if it's a multi-dimensional, if it's the column, you could say if it was a column like what we have here, you could say enter one, enter two, enter three, enter four, enter five, enter six, uh, position six, and then you go to the second row, you do it again, enter one, enter two, and if that's an input, but at the end of the day, it's going to create a multi-dimensional array, and you can keep asking based on what you want to store. And you see to store the of course to assign it, you just say the name of the variable, the yeah, the variable in the that you're looping, in this case an I, and then you put whatever value comes in, and that way it will store it in whatever, if you're using a multi-dimensional array or a single dimensional array. Yeah, so that's it. And I'm going to make this code, of course, this available. You can play with this. This is nice. You can imagine, you can even write a whole program using this, where a registration app, for example, where you register users. So yeah, you just keep collecting user data and you store it somewhere.
All right,
And
thank you.
maybe later I'm going to teach you guys to how you can even collect this data and store it in a file. So when you're done, when you keep collecting it, when it's done, it will actually create a physical file in your computer, and all those names, registered names, will be inside it. So those are all the things Java can do for you. You can create a simple registration form using the command line and all that. Great. So next week we have really like almost touched on all the ABCs now. So the array was actually one of the final parts where we were like, okay, now you guys know ABC to Z. And for some of you, it makes perfect sense. For others, it's new. So please play around with this. From next week, we'll start building. So the next week, we're going to talk about methods. Some of you probably have started using methods. I've used methods here and there, very sparingly, but we're going to start talking about methods, and then we're going to start talking about object-oriented programming. And object-oriented programming, that's the place you want to get to. So object-oriented programming is like now you're going to learn to make sentences. If I have to make it like, use the learning of a language analogy, you now learn to write an essay. You understand? Use object-oriented programming is like writing an essay because now you've learned letters, you've learned words. Now you have to start putting it together to build something. And that is very important when you start talking about object-oriented programming, when you start talking about methods, then programming has really started. What you guys have been doing so far, it is programming. You guys have learned a lot. But remember, um, at the end of the day, if you want to become an architect, if you want to learn how to build a house, what you guys have just learned now is how to cement blocks together. This is a block, this is a cement, this is how you mix a cement. But what you actually want to do is someone can say, "Can you build my house?" And you'll be like, "Yes, I can build it." You want to learn how to build a full wall to wall, put a roof over it, put rooms in it, and then you are a software engineer. So please, it's going to start getting interesting. Try as much as possible not to miss it. Follow it up closely. I think from object-oriented programming, also Ify is also going to find it also much interesting because I think that's the part he's also excited about. I think up until now it's been pretty straightforward and easy. It's also possible when we start using object-oriented programming, you'll be like, oh, I've been using this, I just didn't know. But also, object-oriented programming has its own rules, its concepts, and all that. And we're going to see how programmers think. You have to start thinking like that, thinking in terms of objects, see how object-oriented programming actually copies the real world. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. But next week, we're going to start from methods because methods are part of the building blocks of an object, or also you're going to use it a lot in object-oriented programming. And yeah, you can also go ahead and research it ahead of time so that when you're having a class, it will land easier. So do that if you have some time. Yeah, I wish you guys a lovely weekend, and yeah, do keep in touch. Remember, if you have questions, you can post them on the group app. And I really appreciate how you guys help each other when questions land in there. That is really nice, and that's really what I wanted. And remember, the best way to learn is to help someone else. You have a great weekend, and thank you very much. Bye. Bye.